In our opinion, data ownership also implies that you do not have to trust anybody. So there shouldn't be trust necessary. Also, there shouldn't be any admin access, so any third party you basically have to trust as an administrator. It shouldn't be necessary. And also all NISA risks shouldn't apply if you have real data ownership over your data. And today's architecture often do not really have this data ownership. If you give data to the cloud, your data ownership is compromised. And I would like to talk about technical possibilities to maintain data ownership and maintain your privacy. As a principle of data ownership, we say that every data set you create should be encrypted and also should cryptographically assign to an owner. And cryptographically assigning is something different than just assigning it by closing a door or closing a path. So it's really cryptographically assigned to you as the owner of this data. And we have then different attributes on this data. As I said before, there should be absolutely no trust approach. No third party should be trusted. The data has to be encrypted, absolutely identity centered, so only you can open the data and the data has to be assigned to you. You should, at any circumstances, maintain the data sovereignty of your data. And two other very important attributes should be fulfilled. It's an open standard, so it should be easy to integrate in other ecosystems, and ideally it should be open source, so you do not have to trust the code of any third party. And now, what are the components of data ownership on a technical view now? We have three components defined which are crucial for data ownership. It's encryption. As the first component, it's data storage and architecture, and it's a key management. And I would like to emphasize a little bit in the next 3 slides on these 3 components. First of all, let's have a look at the encryption, which is more or less standard today, that we encrypt data, but it's not the whole story. It's just, as you see, 1/3 of the whole. So encryption should make it possible that there's only zero information in the infrastructure. So as infrastructure, we define any IT structure which is not under direct control of you. And this means the data has to be encrypted to zero information before it leaves your control. And we also add some additional attributes to this encryption. We fragment the data, or we recommend to fragment it, which means, for example, if you have a lot of X-rays of your chest, you could, by the size, estimate that these are X-rays. So we do not want that, so the fragmentation makes sure that even by the size, data cannot be identified. Also, it's important to have a metadata encryption. So from the metadata, there is no backdoor possible from to the content. And in nowadays of quantum computing, etc., it's also important that you have an option to update the encryption retrospectively. Also, of formally encrypted data, you should be able to re-encrypt the data, which is not technically not so easy, but you should have the opportunity to do so. And the second component of data ownership technically is the storage architecture. So if you store everything on one server, the compromisation is pretty high. So we recommend separated systems for absolute security. So what we define is one 3-server system, one server taking care of the authentication. The second server is taking care of all the management of the data storage locations. And the third server is in charge of the actual storage. This also has the advantage that the storage server may be hosted by any unsecure hoster, because the storage server naturally will grow pretty fast with the data you put there, and then the data storage might define the price. So the storage server in this architecture can be on a relative cheap basis, which has significant monetary advantages. So what we do, basically, we have a full separation of user data of the storage locations and of the core data, which makes it possible that only you in the center are able to reconstruct your data and decrypt it again. And the third component is the key management. This is more convenience aspect and also security for you, because if you once lose your key, you are lost because you have lost your data. It's basically as a full crash of your hard drive. And with the mechanism we defined here, we have a separated key management. It enables you to not worry about any key management, so a key loss wouldn't result in a data loss. And the second aspect of this key management is that you can easily share your data. Because if you have encrypted it, it's still data value is defined by sharing data, by communicating data, and this should be as easy as unencrypted. And this is only possible if you have a really smart key management behind it, because if you have to decrypt the data and bring it back to the recipient, and this is a complex sharing mechanism, you won't do it, and it will lose in convenience about the handling. So the easy sharing and unsharing of data is an absolute crucial aspect. And so the key management has to be set up very smart. So these are the three main components, in our opinion, about the data ownership. And I just put one pretty technical slide in here about an example so that the tech freaks can have an idea how it could be applied. So software providers or networks of customers or access control issues or mobility networks or EPRs and electronic patient files could use a client library or an API, which is handling all that, what I just was talking about. Any third-party application here on the top you can see could access these API. The management of all the data could be handled by the blue square here and divided into the separate server system, and the application provider, third-party application provider, would just be demanded to take care of its UI, the user experience. So this is a very pragmatic way to enable cryptographic access control here. And what factors do we need in our social environment? Just a brief aspect what we think should change in our minds and minds also of politics and the government. So from the government, I think we would need to really recognize the need, not only go as a European Union now to car data and just look at them. This is kind of a really unsolved issue if you want to, by 2021, access the car data without any consent, or however this is planned now. I think it's not really well defined. It's important that the government is promoting these technologies, is educating business and individuals, and also is in the demand to set standards here. From the businesses, we should mistrust foreign infrastructure. We shouldn't just trust any cloud provider that they do not get to this data. It's maybe written in the small print, yes, but there is still a chance by a malicious insider or anybody else who might access this data, and we should be sure, we should not just believe, we should be sure that this data is not accessible by any third party who is not in order to do so. Data ownership should be a boardroom topic, and we also should put the customer trust, so our customers, into the center of our whole thinking, and have any compromises in IT solutions and save on money or on technology. And from us as an individual, we should be aware that any free application usually has a price. It has a price of our privacy. We pay with our privacy for free usage of any free apps. And in this context, to press abort may sometimes be better than just continue not reading the small print, etc. And also some more awareness about the convenience trap. We are also very likely to step in. And also we should claim our data rights to make this more valid and severe demand from us as an individual, as a data holder. So this was my short abstract here on data ownership, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Just a quick note that you will find the presentation and also the recording of that session later on in the event platform. We still have 2 minutes left for any questions.
Thank you, Ali. Eberhard here. I have one question because I'm working for a big bank in Germany, and data privacy for us is always at one hand, or data ownership is the ownership of the company of the data and the ownership of our customers of the data. So what you are referring to is mostly the ownership of the company of the data. Is your model expandable for the ownership of the customers of the data?
Yeah, the ownership, I couldn't go into this in too much detail, but the ownership by the model here is defined by a role model, and we call it identities. So the ownership can be owned by a company, by an individual. It can be owned by a piece of software even. So for us, it's an identity, and this identity has access right to this ownership. So it can be freely defined. Even sometimes it makes sense to give a piece of software the ownership for processing something and to process or analyze data if you want to.
Yes, but our customers, they don't have influence on the technical structure of this ownership. So only we as a company have the influence. Is this right?
No, the customer should have the full influence on it. So the model here is designed for that you as a third party can take care of all the storage of the data, and even the customer. Let's say I'm a customer of your bank, if I got it right now, because the connection was breaking away. If I'm a customer of your bank, I would keep the ownership, and I would give you defined access to my data. So you could handle and store my data on my behalf. So I do not trust you. You can store the data, and I can give you, even if you store it, access or no access.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Does it answer your question? Because
yes, in the first stage, maybe we have to deepen it in a more deeper conversation. Yeah, thanks. There is a question, I think.
There's one more question. That's right. It's in the chat. Does ownership of data?
Does ownership of data? The question is
does data imply some sort of monetary compensation?
Some sort of monetary. You can do so, yeah, sure. That's a lot of thought is behind these models for a long time, actually, that ownership is refunded if you allow the usage of the data, etc. You can do so with our system, sure. You can combine the opening of not the opening of the ownership, but the opening of the data to a third party with a reimbursement. Yes. And you can make it time-wise, you can make it usage-wise. This whole usage control is defined by the data ownership model.
Okay, so I will stop the recording and thank you for being in that session. If you still want to contact Mr. Sabri, you can do so on the event platform for further questions. Thank you, Dr. Aly Sabri.
I'm happy to answer any questions.